to record.
Okay, so devotees, welcome once again. Sorry, I was a couple of minutes late. Welcome to all the wonderful regular devotees and some new names I can see. Good to have you all with us. Let me just share my presentation so we can then take it from there. Give me a second. Okay, so we are continuing our reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5. And today we'll be on text 18. So before we go any further, we'll just do the invocation prayers and then take it from there. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki krishne swadamupagate dharma jnana dibhi saha kalau nasta dishamesha purana kodunodita. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Niti Namine Snigdha Cheta Supraneta Vagminam Charasapitam Prabhupada Katataya Naumi Bhakti Charukale. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Kauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Srinivadi Parashat Pradesh Tarineshwar Prabhupada Ki Jai. So, right, so chapter 5 in the first canto is entitled Narada's Instructions on Srimad Bhagavatam for Vyasadeva. Just to do a quick summary of the chapter so far. So verses 1 to 7, Narada's inquiries about why Vyasadeva was despondent and then Vyasadeva's response. And then 8 to 22, this particular section we're in, this is where Vyasadeva reveals the importance of describing Krishna's pastimes. He's told Vyasadeva, Narad Muni has told Vyasadeva that you have written so many wonderful scriptures, but you have not sufficiently glorified the Supreme Lord. And currently we're in this mini section within this 8 to 22, these verses 17 to 19, 17, 18, 19, they comprise of a mini section which is talking about the importance of bhakti and how bhakti is permanent. So we will see, so yesterday, for example, the slok number 17, I don't know who actually did the facilitation yesterday, but they must have spoken about how there is no loss in devotional service. Tyakva tyakva swadharma charambujam hare Bhajan apakvotha patet tadoyadi. Yatra kvakva bhadram abud amushikim kovatha apto bhajatam swadharmata. It's saying that one who has given up his material activities to engage in the service of the Supreme Lord, he may sometimes fall down when he's in the early stages or in the premature stages. But it is said there that there is still guaranteed that he will succeed. But on the other hand, For a karmi person, for somebody who is not devotional, he may do everything perfectly. He may look after his family very nicely. He can do his business very nicely, or have nice qualifications materially and all that. But for that person, he really doesn't gain anything, because whatever he's got will finish at the end of his life. And then we will go on to say today that in the 18th verse, sorry, and then it says that the result of bhakti in 19, it will say result of bhakti is permanent. But today, in today's verse, Narad Muni will say it's better to aim for the highest. Why settle for something secondary? You must actually aim for the highest. So let's go on to today's verse. We'll recite it once again. Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 5, text 18. Yasyaiva heto prayate kovido na labhyate yad brahmatam paryatha talabhyate dukha vadanyayata sukham kale na sarvatra gabira ranhasa. Translations once again. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet, Patala. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time, just as in course of time we obtain miseries, even though we do not desire them. So nice word in this particular verse, Kovido, Kovidaha, actually Kovida. If you look at the translation, it's Kovida. Kovida, the meaning of Kovida is, in this particular verse, Prabhupada translates this as one who is philosophically inclined and an expert. Here, intelligent and philosophically inclined this way. In other places, Kovida is explained as somebody who knows things properly, or one who's learned, very intelligent. So it's quite a coincidence that the virus that we all have are dealing with right now is also called COVID. And COVID also itself is very intelligent in bypassing all the defenses of our body. That's the coincidence, I think. So let's go on to the purport. I've got it on 2 pages. So I'll invite anybody who's ready to just unmute and read the first page, and then somebody else can unmute and read the second page. Hare Krishna. Anybody ready to read?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can I read, please?
Yes. Was it Parthasarathi Prabhu who spoke?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu, please continue.
Yeah, thank you. Every man everywhere is trying to obtain the greatest amount of sense enjoyment by various endeavors. Some men are busy engaged in trade, industry, economic development, political supremacy, etc. And some of them are engaged in fruitive work to become happy in the next life by attaining higher planets. It is said that on the moon, the inhabitants are fit for the greatest sense enjoyment by drinking somarasa, and the Pitraloka is obtained by good charitable work. So there are various programs for sense enjoyment, either during this life or in the life after death. Some are trying to reach the moon or other planets by some mechanical arrangement, for they are very anxious to get into such planets without doing good work. But it is not to happen. By the law of Supreme, different places are meant for different grades of living beings according to the work they have performed. By good work only, as prescribed in the scriptures, can one obtain birth in a good family, opulence, good education, and good bodily features. We see also that even in this life, one obtains good education or money by good work. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Very nice. Anybody else? Read the second page.
Hare Krishna. May I read?
Hare Krishna. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay.
Pushpa
Hare Krishna. We see also that even in this life, one attains a good education or money by good work. Similarly, in our next birth, we get such desirable positions only by good work. Otherwise, it would not so happen that two persons born in the same place at the same time are seen differently placed according to previous work. But all such material positions are impermanent. The positions in the topmost Brahmaloka and in the lowest Patala are also changeable according to our own work. The philosophically inclined person must not be tempted by such changeable positions. He should try to get into the permanent life of bliss and knowledge, where he will not be forced to come back again to the miserable material world, either in this or that planet. Miseries and mixed happiness are two features of material life, and they're obtained in Brahmaloka and in other lokas also. They're obtained in the life of the demigods and also in the life of the dogs and hogs. The miseries and mixed happiness of all living beings are only of different degree and quality, but no one is free from the miseries of birth and death, old age and disease. Similarly, everyone has his destined happiness also. No one can get more or less of these things simply by personal endeavors. Even if they're obtained, they can be lost again. One should not therefore waste time with these flimsy things. One should only endeavor to go back to Godhead. That should be the mission of everyone's life. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Pushpa Mataji. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavasya Shri Rupam Sadhajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vipashi Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Vipasindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So as usual, we'll just dive into the nice purport, very, very meaningful. We'll just, in the time that we have available, we'll try and pick the main points up. So Prabhupada starts the purport with saying, every man everywhere is trying to obtain the greatest amount of sense enjoyment by various endeavors. So this is something that we are all quite familiar with. Every one of us, we have this experience, sense enjoyment, until we come to realize ourselves, until we realize that the sense enjoyment is temporary, is mostly related to the body, well, only related to the body, and unless we know what is the right engagement for a human being, we will continue on the path of sense enjoyment. So there is a section in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter. 5th chapter is entitled, 5th canto, 5th chapter entitled, Lord Rishabdev's teaching to his sons. This chapter is really, really interesting. Of course, we'll soon come to that, but I find that whole chapter very instructive. So there's a section of 4, 5, text 4, 5, and 6 in that chapter, which are quite related to what we are speaking today, what Prabhupada is speaking today. But even before that, the first text, the first verse of that chapter, Vishwadev starts with this warning about sense gratification. And he says to his sons, Nayam deho deha bhajam nirloke, kashtan kamam arhate vidpujam ye. Tapo divyam putraka yena satvam, sutya yasmat brahma saukhyam tvanantam. So he says, Nayam deho deha bhajam nirloke. So it says, out of all the living, all the souls who have obtained material bodies, one who has actually obtained this human body should not work hard day and night just for sense gratification. Because sense gratification, Lord Vishnu was explaining in this verse, is available with pujamye, which means these are even animals who eats too. So animals like pigs can also have their own sense enjoyment, sometimes in a greater way than even the human beings. Kashtan kaman, so don't work so hard just to do what the vidbujam are doing. But what is the duty of the human beings? He says, tapo divyam putraka yena satvam. So we need to tapo. Actually, human life is meant for tapasya. Most people don't like tapasya. When people, that's why a lot of people refuse to come to a spiritual path, because any spiritual path we take, not just talking about ISKCON or Vaishnavism, but any spiritual path you take, in any religion, there will be tapasya. So that's why a lot of people, they prefer to call themselves atheists, so they can, a little bit like an ostrich sticking the head into the sand, think that everything's going to be okay, I'll just enjoy myself. But no, here it says clearly that the human being's duty is tapo divyam putraka yena satvam. So take the path of righteousness and perform austerities to gain the platform of devotional service. And when you properly attain that platform of devotional service, then what? Sutyet yasmat brahma saukhyam tvanantam. Even in this purport, Prabhupada is saying that one should be doing activities which are permanent. So here in that particular first text, Rishabhadev is saying, Sudyet yasmat brahma saukhyam tvanantam. So unending. So once you get that platform, we will enjoy a blissful, eternal life, which is transcendental to the material enjoyment and which continues forever. So he starts off that chapter with that, and then in the verse 4, he says, Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma yad indriya pritaya pranoti nasadu manye yata atmanoyam asan api kleshada asadeha. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past mistakes, he has already received a body, which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, a living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification, meaning that because of his previous sense gratification, he's got this body. So therefore, he says, I think it not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after the other. So sense gratification is the reason why we keep coming back to this material world. And as we always say, devotees, remember, we are going to come back to this material world, not always in a human form. Depending on our karma, depending on our balance, our piety, or lack of it, rather, we could actually come back in an animal society, in which case we then lose our opportunity to break away from the cycle of birth and death, and we continue in this 8.4 million different species of life until naturally one day we come back to the human form. But why waste that time? Shastra, Srimad Bhagavatam, Rishabdev, Narad Muni are telling us the message clearly. Stop sense gratification and focus on tapasya. Continuing that the theme in 555. So let's say there's some purport which I picked up on 554. He says, begging, borrowing, and stealing to live for sense gratification, Prabhupada is saying, is condemned in this verse, because such consciousness leads to a dark, hellish condition. The four sinful activities are illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. These are the means by which one gets another material body that is full of miseries. In the Vedas, it is says, asango hyayam purusha. The living entity is not really connected with this material world, but due to his tendency to enjoy the material senses, he is put into the material condition. One should perfect his life by associating with devotees. He should not become further implicated in the material body. So this very first line in the purport, he says, begging, borrowing, and stealing. So this, at any cost, people want to enjoy. And this mentality is not, people think, okay, now because it's Kali Yuga and you know, these people are degraded, this is why it's happening. But these kind of people always existed. It is often quotes Charvak Muni. Charvak Muni existed many, many years ago, maybe even 1,000 years ago. I don't exactly remember, but he was there in the early ages. And his philosophy was this. His philosophy was that, you know, there's nothing after this life, just enjoy. And there's a nice verse, of course. Does anybody know that verse? Charvak Muni's verse. He says, Rinam kritva kritam tibet. So Rinam, Rini, we know Rini, to become a Rini means to become a debtor, or to owe something to somebody. So he says, Rinam kritva kritam tibet. So become a debtor. That means in this way, begging, borrowing, borrow, steal, whatever. But kritam tibet, which means drink ghee. So here actually literally says drink ghee, but the significance is enjoy yourself, because actually in the olden days, ghee was a very expensive. Now, I suppose even now, ghee is not cheap, it's expensive. So somebody who could enjoy ghee or preparations made from ghee, they were supposed to be enjoying life. So he says, Rinam ketva gritam jivet, yavat jivet sukham jivet. Whatever you do, live happily, which means beg, you know, borrow or steal, but live happily. He continues, Asmutasya dehasya. This deha, this sharir is going to be burnt one day. Kuta agamano bhavet. So where is the question of coming back? So in his theory was that this is only one lifetime. Enjoy yourself to the fullest. Don't worry about the future life because there's nothing happening. So there are of course atheists like that today, but they existed since time immemorial. Next verse in this particular mini series we're speaking about is 555. Right? Rishabdev is saying, Parabhavas tavat abodha jato yavan jigna sata atma tattvam yavat kriyas tavat idam manovai karmatmakam yena sharira bandha. He says, as long as one does not inquire about the spiritual values of life, one is defeated and subjected to miseries arising from ignorance. So you see, if we just focus on sense gratification, ignore our spiritual values of life, then we're going to keep committing sins and misery is going to be piling up on us. He continues, be it sinful or pious, karma has its resultant actions. So both, even if we're doing pious activities, we still need to come back to enjoy our fruits. So either way, it's not beneficial for us. So he says, be it sinful or pious, karma has its resultant actions. If a person is engaged in any kind of karma, his mind is called karmatmaka, colored with fruit of activity. As long as the mind is impure, the consciousness is unclear. And as long as he's absorbed in fruit of activity, he has to accept another body. Very, very clear. Then there's some purport I picked up here, but okay, let's see how time goes. Generally, people think, Prabhupada is saying, generally people think that one should act very piously in order to be relieved from misery. But this is not a fact. Even though one engages in pious activity and speculation, he is nonetheless defeated. His only aim should be emancipation from the clutches of Maya and all material activities. Speculative knowledge and pious activities do not solve the problem of material life. One should be inquisitive to understand his spiritual position, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 4:37. Yathaya damsi samigdoignir bhasmat kurute arjuna jnana agni sarvakarmani bhasmat kurute tatha. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjun, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Of course, we're speaking about spiritual knowledge here. So here Prabhupada is saying, the pious or not, you will still eventually go to suffer. In the Bhagavad Gita 9:21, it's spoken about how even if you gather a lot of piety, still at some point, after enjoying for many years in heavenly planets, you come back. Does anybody know that verse? Famous verse, 9:21. Tetam bhukva svargalokam vishalam, shine punya martalokam vishanti, evam kai dhamam anupapanna, katagatam kama kama labante. So he says, so talking about people who've accumulated a lot of piety, for them he says, after enjoying for many years in the planets of the pious living entities, meaning the Svargalokas, when the stock of the pious activities is exhausted, they return once again to this material world. So yeah, Prabhupada says, Krishna says in that verse that therefore those who focus only on sense gratification, for them, katagatam kama kama labante, so they will just be involved in a cycle of birth and death all the time. And 556 in that little series it says, evam mana karme vasham prayuktate avidyayat manyu pradiyamane pritirna yavana mayi vasudeva namuchyate teha yogena tavat. So this is not one of the verses that I know, so you can see I'm struggling also a little bit with Sanskrit, but translation goes, when the living entity is covered by the mode of ignorance, he does not understand the individual living entity being, individual living being and the Supreme Being, and his mind is subjugated by the fruitive activity. Therefore, until one has love for Lord Vasudeva, one is none other than, who is none other than myself, he is certainly not delivered from having to accept a material body again and again. This theme is continuing throughout the Bhagavad Gita, throughout the Bhagavatam, that this cycle of birth and death, coming back here and again, must be terminated. And one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavatam is in the second canto, in the first canto, second chapter, text 6, where the duty of human being is explained. It says, Savai pumsa paro dharmo yato bhakti adokshite hai tuki yapati hata yayatma suprasiddhati. It says the supreme occupation for all humanity is that by which a person can attain to loving devotional service to the transcendent Lord. And such devotional service should be unmotivated and uninterrupted for it to completely satisfy the self. Purport to the 556 is when the mind is polluted by fruitive activity, the living entity wants to be elevated from one material position to another. Generally, everyone is involved in working hard day and night to improve his economical condition. Even when one understands the Vedic rituals, he becomes interested in promotion to the heavenly planets, not knowing that one's real interest lies in returning home back to Godhead. By acting on the platform of fruitive activity, one wanders throughout the universe in different species and forms. Unless he comes in contact with a devotee of the Lord, a guru, he does not become attached to the service of Vasudeva. So then going back to the purport, again, one other point we picked up was the positions in the topmost Brahmaloka and the lowest Patala are also changeable according to our own work. The philosophically inclined persons must not be tempted by such changeable positions. He should try and get into the permanent life of bliss and knowledge, where he will not be forced to come back again to the miserable material world. So you see here in this diagram, you've got the universe, structure of the universe. Earthly planets are somewhere here. And above us are six, about seven, yeah. So there's 7 upper and 7 lower planetary systems. But it doesn't matter where you are. Even we do lots of pious activities and promote ourselves up, we still have to come back down. And what to say of going down. So all of these places are full of miseries. And in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is explained about the topmost planet to the lowest, all are full of miseries, or repeated birth and death. Somebody know that verse, please? 8:16. Where are all the scholars today? So Lord Krishna says, Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartina arjuna mamupetyate konteya punarjanmana vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. For one who's attained to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. And then Prabhupada concludes, one should not therefore waste time with these flimsy things. One should only endeavor to to go back to Godhead. That should be the mission of everyone's life. And I've already actually recited this verse about Sarve Pumsa Paradharmo, the duty of every living entity. And the little purport I picked up from there, part of the purport, it says, in this statement, Sri Sutta Goswami answers the first question of the sages of Naimisharanya. The sages asked him to summarize the whole range of revealed scriptures and present the most essential part of that, so that fallen people or the people in general might easily take up. The Vedas prescribe 2 different types of occupation for the human being. One is called the pravritti marg, and the path of sense gratification or enjoyment, and the other is called nivritti marg, or the path of renunciation. The path of enjoyment is inferior, and the path of sacrifice or the supreme cause is superior. So the path that we must take is the sacrifice, tapasya. In our sense, it means going to bed early, waking up early, avoiding all nonsensical activities, do not watch TV, or at least watch less TV, stop wasting time in prajalpa, nonsense, talking nonsense, whatever spare time we have, focus on reading, hearing, associating with devotees, serving with devotees. And these are the activities which will eventually bind us to the right path and lead us to the real goal for the human life. Hare Krishna. activities will stop here, and I will invite any comments, questions.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna,
All
Prabhu.
glory. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your wonderful class. I joined late, sorry Prabhuji, but I have a question about the, the patal, that whole, if you can go back to the that slide, please, where it says Earth and then the lower planetary systems and upper planetary systems.
Yeah, let me try and share that again. Give me a second. I'll go back to sharing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here is Earth is in the middle, and all the lower planetary systems are there. And here, in Swargaloka, it says heavenly planets, realm of 330 million demigods. I can understand demigods, but why demons? Even Bhuvarloka says Rakshasas and ghosts. So why are they above Earth? They should be below. Demons and Rakshasas and ghosts should be below Earth, isn't it? Demigods. That's my question.
So, okay, good question, Rupa Mataji. Thank you so much. So it's like this, demons. So there are a lot of it's the structure. When we speak about it in very simple language, we say the higher planets are better, the lower planets are worse, and that generally is the case. But we also know from the Bhagavatam that some of the lower planetary systems are even more opulent, much more opulent than the earthly planets. So it's a little bit of a mixture. So the demons we are speaking about up there are demons who may have performed lots of austerity, they may have done lots of pious activities, but the mentality is still demoniac. So because of their pious activities, they are given promotion. So they are living in the higher planetary systems. But eventually, of course, they will come down. So yes, there are demons also living in the first Bhuvarloka or even the Swargaloka area. So demons are there, and that's why you see many times you hear through the Mahabharata and not Mahabharata, more Bhagavatam about fighting between demons and demigods. So they are all around in that location, and they're different. Maybe they are, when we say Bhuvarloka, for example, so it's not just one planet. So there's a series of planets. It's like planes. It's like, you can think about it horizontally. So these are all horizontal planes, and within one plane, there are millions of planets. So some planets are occupied by demons and some by demigods, like that. Well, I hope it makes sense.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, yes, thank you. And what about the ghosts? Ghosts. The ghosts are the abominable. I mean, they must have done something very abominable to not get a body, isn't it? That's what Prabhupada says about ghosts. So why ghosts?
So again, so similarly, the ghosts are there in those planetary systems as well, and they when you get a ghostly body, sometimes it's not purely because you have been impious. Sometimes we get a ghostly body because our sometimes it is said that if the sons have not done the Shraddha properly, then the soul remains in the ghostly body until the Shraddha is done properly. So like this, those people can also maybe also pious people, but they're left in a limbo because the after death kriya hasn't been done properly, something like that, right? But to be honest, I don't have full understanding of this particular ghost situation. But I am right now. This much I do know, that yes, there are ghostly beings who are not necessarily. Even in ghost stories we hear sometimes, not all ghosts are nasty. Some ghosts actually can be helpful, but they're just unfortunate that they've been left in the limbo instead of moving in from this body after death, moving on to swiftly into another body, they are left in a limbo, different reasons.
So after, sorry, Prabhuji, I'm diverting from my own question. But after say somebody who has done something, he's become a ghost, not getting a body, and then will they remain not getting a body, or will they, after some time they will get a body?
So yeah, I think it is said that either if some of the even the grandchildren, if they do offer make some offering to Pitrus, then all the Pitrus are delivered at that, right? So maybe some generations later they get some offering and they get they're moving on, and sometimes after a certain period also they could come back and enter into a body.
Because only in Hinduism, I think they do the Shraddha ceremony or something. I don't know about other religions, how they do. And also in this day and age, there are no proper kind of, even the priests, they don't know what they're, what mantra they're saying. And obviously the people who are there, they don't know whatever is happening. They just give the money and they think everything is done and everything is okay because nobody can see what's going, what's happening to actually. So I don't think, long time ago, everything was done very properly and I can understand that time. But nowadays, I think not even 1% of people will do anything properly, even in Hindu.
True. That is true. So, like you say, other faiths are not believing all this, but they have their own way. We believe that they will all be, unless the Shraddha is done properly, they are not going to be delivered. But yeah, they have different belief systems, and you're quite right. The Brahmanas, the Panditas nowadays, sometimes are just business people, not really interested in the mantras and just interested in getting some Lakshmi for themselves. So yeah, it's like that. But still, I think as far as the family members are concerned, they are not at fault. See, if I have arranged a Shraddha ceremony for my father, the fact that the priest is cheating me as his karma. I have done my part, and then Krishna sees that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you for nice questions, Rupa Mataji.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes,
So there is one just a comment. So demons, they exist, so, and also they are also exist in the Vaikuntha. So where when Lord Brahma sees the Vaikuntha, there are also demigods and demons both worship the supreme personality of Godhead in Vaikuntha without any discrimination. So that is also mentioned in Bhagavatam.
Thank you. Prabhu. Yes, I wasn't aware that even in Vaikuntha the demons were there, but we take it that you have read it from a reliable source. Yes, and I will do some reading into this too. Thank you. Prabhu. There's purport actually. Partha Sarthi Prabhu has put down the purport here. Do you want to come online, unmute and speak about this, please, Prabhu?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. On the question related to Mataji on ghosts, I thought just to refer this, in 9.25 Bhagavad Gita purport, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that one can go to many ghostly planets and become Yaksha, Raksha or Pisacha. Pisacha worship is called black arts or black magic. So I think here ghosts also mentioned about like the one who can become Yaksha, Rakshasa and Pisacha in the ghostly planets.
Okay. Yes, thank you for that clarification. Yeah. It is not. It's a complex subject. What happens to the body after? What happens to the soul rather after death is a very complex subject, and different souls, of course, is very individual. Different destinations and how it all happens. So sometimes we can generalize, but it's not so straightforward. It's a very deep subject. Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam, Chandra Prabhu.
Wonderful session. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your encouragement.
Yeah, the story about the ghosts and all that, when we read the Ekadashi stories for the different Ekadashis, some of the stories relate to some persons who are cursed to become ghosts. And the only way they can be delivered is through the mercy of a devotee of the Lord. So we are very fortunate that the pure devotee like Prabhupada came into our life and somehow showed his boundless compassion, so everyone can benefit, whether they are, in the ghost body or material body or whatever. So we are very fortunate, but you need the mercy of a devotee. Without that, you cannot go anywhere.
So true, Chandra. Thank you for reminding me. Prabhupada actually, if you do know, there is actually a real pastime of haunted house. It was, I think, in London or England at least, where this house was haunted, and Prabhupada went there, did some kirtan, and got rid of the house. So the point is, getting rid of that ghost means that Prabhupada, a pure devotee, actually delivered that ghost.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
even also, I remember when we watch the series that Paticharu Maharaj made, Abhaycharan series. In there also, there's in one episode Prabhupada dealing with a ghost rather than a host.
Yes, yes.
Yes, we've seen that.
So,
Thank you.
interesting. Thank you, Chandra Prabhu. Krishna. Okay, devotee is coming up at 10 to 9. So thank you so much for your patience. Puja Mataji, sorry if I was not able to answer some of the questions properly. I need to also do some more research in that area. But thank you for devotees. Thank you for your time. Vancha kalpatarubhyo kripasindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji. Thank you,
Thank you,
devotees.
Prabhuji.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare